Hello everybody, welcome to WhatCulture Gaming. I'm Scott, joined by Josh.
Hello, Scott.
Josh, my friend, the PS5 showcase is, 24-ish hours away, depending on when people start to see this. And we just thought, why not do a last-minute roundup of all the rumours that are a little bit mad, a little bit crazy, but there's just enough just to sort of get in on that little E3 hype-esque window to be like, well, you never know, it might come true. So in that vein, how does the words Uncharted 5 grab you?
Uncharted 5, but Scott Tilford, Uncharted has finished. How can there be an Uncharted 5? I don't know, tell me.
The thing that backs this up is that Sony have had a super top secret studio for over a year or so now, made up of ex-Naughty Dog and ex-Rockstar devs. And they've been working on some sort of top secret thing that's long been rumoured as Uncharted 5. Troy Baker himself, voice of Sam Drake in Uncharted 4, has been tweeting as well, saying that his next game, he basically answered this, it's obviously a joke, but he joked about this thing that he's working on, saying that his first game was Brothers in Arms, and his next game was under NDA. And then he followed that up by saying that it was a prequel to, and then blank again. Now, all of that is probably just Troy Baker doing a bit of a banter. But at the same time, it kind of would line up that, that was what a lot of people assumed after Uncharted 4, that you could continue on Uncharted with Sam Drake and maybe do something with Sully. It's worth throwing in here as well. Now, not that this is substantiated, but there is potentially an Uncharted game featuring Sully. I don't believe this one at all. Just because it originated on 4chan, just some random dude said, hey, they're doing an open world Uncharted game where you fly around as Sully and you see plane and you get to do stuff. But what do you think of the Troy Baker Sam Drake one?
Yeah, I feel like, even though, Nathan Drake's story has wrapped up with Uncharted 4, the Uncharted franchise is just too lucrative for Sony to allow to sit for too long. Like, I think Uncharted 4 sold something ridiculous, like 16 million copies, which is, again, ridiculous because it's an exclusive game. So it's not something they're just going to let, die, I guess. There's far too much money in it. And to be fair, there's a lot of material yet to be mined. Like Sam, for instance, he's only been in Uncharted 4 before then. Nathan Drake thought he was dead. He was in prison for 15 years. There's a lot that we as players don't yet know about him, and he makes it's the next kind of logical step to explore him a bit more, whether it's in a prequel or whether it's set between, the end of Uncharted 4 and the epilogue or not. There's so many fascinating facets to that character that could support a full game, and obviously Troy Baker can support a full game, has the range of the performance, and is one of the top voice actors and performers working today. So
I do love a little bit of Baker. I do kind of wonder where they would set it. Let's just run with it and assume that it's going to be like a prequel. There is that 15-year gap where he's just in prison, where Nate sort of leaves him behind during the prison escape at the beginning of Uncharted 4. But you did mention before we started recording that there is that whole bit at the very beginning when they're kids where he sort of disappears and goes off to do his own thing. But assumedly, I don't know, it would have to be set directly before they go to jail, directly before Sam, Nate, and Rafe all go to jail. I guess there are little pockets of potential that they could sort of just slot in.
Scotty Tilford, just to make this sound even more ridiculous, because I'm not putting much stock in this being at the event tomorrow. I'm sure there is an Uncharted game in the works, potentially from the new San Diego studio, which has a lot of ex-Naughty Dog staffers and a lot of ex-Rockstar staffers and stuff. But I don't think it'll be tomorrow. But going on that prequel thought, just to be outrageous for a second, all I'm saying is Sony finally are filming an Uncharted movie with Tom Holland as Nathan Drake, a young Nathan Drake. So if they're already open to exploring a younger version of these characters in movie form, why can't we have a super young Sam, messing about in between that period?
That would assumedly negate Troy Baker unless he does a higher pitched voice, but it depends what they do. I think, like you said, in the movie side, they said they wanted to kind of appeal to a whole new generation, and so far they've kind of been aiming for the Uncharted 3 stuff, but I think that now that I start thinking about it, there are places you could plug in more Uncharted stories, and for me, Lost Legacy just proved that you can do that stuff and it can work out really well, even if it would be a bit of a risk because it's not Naughty Dog. Something else that's doing the rounds though is part of the new PlayStation 5 TV advert has an airship in the background. And a lot of people have been trying to guess what this thing's from. It looks a little bit like Sly Cooper. I saw some other people saying that it looks like something from Jak and Daxter. I think that it's actually the airship from Final Fantasy VI, which is a weird swerve, but I would hope, that if Square Enix were going to do something else using the Final Fantasy VII engine, the remake engine, that sort of combat model and something else, Final Fantasy VI has that legacy behind it. It tends to be 6, 7, and 9 are the three that get held up as the best of all time. It would be a crazy swerve, and I guess they would have to balance balance, multiple part storytelling because 7 hasn't wrapped up yet. But as a more casual Final Fantasy fan, do you care about a 2D Final Fantasy VI becoming 3D?
Well, Scott Tilford, I keep saying your full name in this video
Please
over and over
do.
again, like
Josh
you're
Brown.
my dad or something. I don't know very much about Final Fantasy at all, only from what I've gleaned from articles or stuff that I've voiced or talking to my good friends in the office. But that said, I really got on board with Final Fantasy VII Remake this year. Really enjoyed myself, really got interested in the world and the series as a whole. So I am, excited for more remakes of those kind of like seminal titles, like you said. 6 and 9, I always hear, are held up to this, ridiculously high standard
so
alongside 7. So for me, as a kind of outsider, like that's something I would want to see. And it kind of does make sense with, what Sony has apparently been doing over the past year or year and a half. We've had a lot of reports coming out that they've essentially been throwing money to every single publisher under the sun, trying to secure exclusivity, whether that's, full exclusivity or just timed exclusives. And maybe it would make sense for them after they had such a good partnership with Square Enix for Final Fantasy VII Remake to strike that up again for another Final Fantasy VII Remake further down the line. Whether they'll do that at the same time as finishing Final Fantasy VII, though, I don't know, because that's a lot of eggs in one basket.
That game, I don't know when the hell the end of that, because initially it was going to be in like 5 parts, and then it was 2, and now it's apparently going to be a trilogy, and it just seems to be this thing where they don't necessarily know exactly how they're going to plan that out. So yeah, it's that idea of them doing the same with Final Fantasy VI, or maybe it's just some sort of visual overhaul or something. I don't know, but my shout on what the airship is something from 6, the Blackjack from 6. Did also want to mention Final Fantasy XVI, obviously the next big numbered installment. One of Square Enix's, I did have his name down, Shinji Hashimoto. He is Square Enix's executive officer and the Final Fantasy's brand manager. He tweeted about being excited for the PS5 event tomorrow, and then immediately deleted it. So it was like one of those weird smoke and gun things where like, why can't the man just be excited about an event? Is it because Square Enix have something to show? I don't know. But Final Fantasy 16 has been talked about for the last few years. Final Fantasy 15 went through development hell, started as Final Fantasy 13. It was a whole thing until it eventually came out as 15. And I guess I would hope that if they do the next numbered one, I would hope that they bring across Final Fantasy VII Remake's combat system, because for me that's just the best combat system that Square Enix have put together literally ever. I love the turn-based stuff, but if they're going to go all-out action, I feel like they've been trying to nail that for just way too many games. I don't know what if like the next numbered thing would bring you in, or would you sort of wait and see, go back to one of the other legacy ones?
Yeah, because everyone has nothing but good things to say about the legacy ones, but when it comes to Final Fantasy 13 and Final Fantasy 15, there's a lot of caveats. Like when I was going to get Final Fantasy 15, people were saying, it's a great time, the boys are good,
the world's great.
Driving around, the world's great, the combat's quite fun, but then you hit a slog in the final third where you do all these stealth missions and it becomes bad and it's not finished because they're doing a lot of DLC
that
stuff.
Thing, it was like chapter 13 in that game is hands down one of the worst things I've ever played. They have gutted that and completely changed it, but for a while it was just like bad PS2 stealth where it was just like get scene, restart. It was horrible, but they've sort of overhauled that. You would hope that they do something better.
You would hope they would kind of like try to return to the previous glory or whatever. That said, even though I'm not necessarily as interested in a continuation as I am a remake, being an outsider, I think this is probably the most nailed on rumor that we have today, because I've been seeing this everywhere for the past few.
You think, Josh Brown?
You got something bigger, Scott? Because I've seen this rumor everywhere. I've seen it from people, diving into Square Enix's, into the Twitter history, into just rumors popping up on message boards. Apparently, they're trying to get it timed exclusive and stuff. This is one of the big publishers that said yes to Sony, both on Marvel's Avengers and apparently on Final Fantasy. So I am, I'm not expecting to see it tomorrow, but if it is there, I'm not going to be surprised.
Yeah, my thing is just that it's their last big conference before the PS5. As far as I know anyway, I don't think they're going to squeeze something else in, so it needs to be all guns blazing. And I remember after the Spider-Man exclusivity deal for Avengers, I'm sure it was Imran Khan from Kind of Funny, and I think he's ex-Game Informer, was tweeting saying like, look, if you think that this is one hell of a bad anti-consumer move, like tying stuff to PlayStation, such a big deal and tying it to PlayStation, he was like 2021 is not going to be like a fun year for Xbox fans and people who think those things. So I just envision Sony just big bags of money, just lots of money, going door to door, just we'll take that, we'll take this, setting up all sorts of exclusivity deals, whether they're timed or not. Even Final Fantasy VII Remake, like you said, is a timed exclusive and still isn't on Xbox yet, and that only benefits them. So one of the deals that they have apparently been doing, and we've covered this a handful of times on the channel, is apparently Sony went up to Konami and discussed the reality of rebooting Silent Hill, and also Castlevania, but it seems like only the Silent Hill half of that story kind of was continued, because Konami themselves initially said, oh, we can't comment on rumors and speculation, and then said, oh yeah, we have something to say, but we can't tell you what it is yet. So it seems like there is something coming, and hopefully if you're a PlayStation fan, it's tied to the consoles. I think Silent Hill might be the one that is one of the biggest gets that I guess assumably would come pretty soon after they announce it.
Totally. I mean, yeah, Silent Hill is the one that's kind of picked up steam all year. Like you said, months ago, we were reporting on these rumors initially kind of coming out from a lot of different sources. And apparently it's going to be sort of like a reboot or a reimagining of Silent Hill as a whole from the original creators. So the original creators coming back, the original composer, stuff like that to kind of reinvent the franchise under Sony and not Konami, which, I feel like if Sony's going to have this approach where, like you said, they're kicking down doors, they're throwing bags of cash at people saying, just let me buy something, Konami is going to be the publisher that kind of just says, yes, take me, Sony, give me the money, and you just do stuff with these franchises that we're doing absolutely nothing with, and get us some good rep in the process. And again,
I do think it'll be a little bit disappointing if after this long it's just like a remake or it's just a glorified remaster. If it's kind of in the vein of like Tony Hawk's, I absolutely adore Tony Hawk's, but I think at this stage it needs something new. But the corporate approach to revitalizing an old IP is to sort of inject one of the older ones with a remaster or remake, test the waters, and then go from there, which is apparently what Ubisoft were doing with Sands of Time. But it's just, I have to assume that they do something more forthright, especially if Sony are involved in making some sort of exclusivity deal, making it a second-party PS5 exclusive. They're gonna have to give it the works, I would say. But yeah.
I agree, man. Even if you just get those original creators back, that doesn't necessarily mean they're just kind of remaking what they've done before. I think for me, it would be more interesting to get them back to carve out a new direction for the franchise as a whole. You know what I mean? Under Sony or whatever. That would be a huge get. Obviously, they've already managed to tie Resident Evil to PlayStation, even though that game obviously isn't exclusive, through VR and always having Resident Evil stuff at their showcases. So if they manage to get Silent Hill as well, that's two beloved survival horror franchises back under their roof. It's again the ethics of whether just throwing money to get these exclusive rights to these franchises that have a history of being cross-platform. That's not something I can really touch on right now because I don't know the extent of it or if it's going to happen at all. But for Sony themselves, to get those franchises into the PlayStation family or whatever, it's a good business move for them,
huge. I mean, they're looking at the way that the terrain seems to be rolling out. Xbox have very much targeted the value proposition of we have the cheapest console, at least so far, and Game Pass and access to all these different things. xCloud just seems to work beautifully. They have all this stuff that just says, look, if you want to buy as many games as possible and enjoy the medium overall, then go with us. Whereas I think Sony can be well, we have this more sort of deluxe offering, or we're potentially going to hike the price up on the console and then focus on exclusives and next-gen stuff and forward-looking things. So it's interesting to see how both would play out. But yeah, this stuff potentially lines up with a lot of the way that Sony seem to be approaching the next generation. I did want to mention as well, I wonder if Hideo Kojima will be there tomorrow, because he's been teasing the fact that he's working on a horror thing for ages, which a lot of people assumed was also Silent Hill. But he's mentioned wanting to work with Junji Ito, and it's just that idea that he could do all the body horror stuff that was in PT and just more fetuses in sinks, mate. I mean, I think we're long overdue.
Pie all this crap off that we've talked about now. Uncharted 5, who needs it? Silent Hill,
who needs it?
Oh, don't care. Give me this original Hideo Kojima horror game. Collaborate with Junji Ito, like you said, and that would be the mic drop for me. That would be Kojima swinging it around and just chucking it out the window.
At this stage, Kojima will know what his next game is. He's been teasing stuff for a while. Death Stranding was last year, the year before, sometime before the current situation. It was a while ago. And considering the turnaround on Death Stranding, when he put out his timetable, he'd already nailed down the concept and what he was going to do within the first year. So yeah, there's every chance that a Hideo Kojima game could be there at the end. But in terms of stuff that is quote unquote backed up, there's nothing mentioned about Kojima yet, other than that he's vaguely tied to the potential of the Silent Hill project. But yeah, let us know what you think down in the comments below. Which game are you most excited to see, and what's your most banana sandwich ridiculous thing that could be there in the end? For now, I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com.
I've been Josh from WhatCulture.com.
And we'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Very aggressive, that.
See ya.